In the last 10 years, the number of women in the global workforce has increased by 250 million, and that trend is only rising. Compared to just a quarter century ago, more women and girls have access to higher education and capital, giving them greater opportunities to leverage their innovative ideas into businesses. Research finds that supporting female entrepreneurs boosts a country's markets by 12% GDP. In 2012, there was an estimated 126 million women starting new businesses and another 98 million running established businesses throughout the world. In the US alone, women are starting 1,200 businesses a day and employing nearly 8 million people, generating $1.4 trillion in sales. Now that's a lot of cash. But what's more, these strong women are building a framework for young women and girls to enter the workforce with fewer obstacles in the future. But our work isn't done yet. Women in developed nations are half as likely to start businesses compared to men, and even less likely in countries with fewer opportunities for female entrepreneurship. For success in this space, women need more female mentors, the same access to capital as men, and a change in perception that entrepreneurship is not only a masculine activity. And on top of the numbers, women are often caught between cultural expectations and the expectations of the workplace. Despite this, women entrepreneurs are breaking barriers, benefiting themselves, their families, and their home countries. The numbers are in. When women entrepreneurs are supported, economies grow.
Buonasera. I'm Sophie Dvorak from the U.S. Consulate General in Milan. Along with my colleagues at our embassy in Rome and consulates in Naples and Florence, I would like to welcome you to today's Transatlantic Thursdays program. In honor of International Women's Day, which we celebrated on Monday, and Women's History Month, which we celebrate every March in the United States, we are thrilled to be joined today by startup expert Cheryl Edison to discuss women's entrepreneurship. As the intro video stated, when women entrepreneurs are supported, economies grow. Cheryl Edison knows this. She's a serial entrepreneur, investor, and global business development strategist based in San Francisco, California, where she joins us today. Quoted in USA Today, CNN, and the Silicon Valley Business Times, Edison serves startups, Fortune 100s, investors, property developers, universities, and civic leaders. Her work spans 57 industries across 5 continents. In 2019, Cheryl traveled to 16 countries, providing 167 strategy sessions, workshops, and keynotes in collaboration with organizations such as the Gates Foundation, SAP, Stanford University, and the U.S. State Department. After Cheryl's presentation, we'll be joined by our friend Nicole Gardoni, Marketing and Communications Manager at Lendlease, who will follow up with some questions for Cheryl. And then Cheryl will answer your questions. You don't have to wait to ask, though. At any point, please type in your questions in the comment section on YouTube or Facebook. With that, I'll hand over the presentation to Cheryl. Cheryl, thank you for joining us at such an early hour in California. Are you ready to start?
Unmuted here, unmuted and ready to go. Hello, Sophie. Thank you so much. What a pleasure. What a pleasure. I'm very happy to be here with you today. I can see everybody looking happy. It's 7 a.m. here in San Francisco, and I would like to know what time it is where you are. Today, we are going to be discussing entrepreneurship, and particularly entrepreneurship for women. Now I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you some slides, but I don't know that we'll get through all of them. We're going to get through as many as we can. We have 25 minutes, so let's get started. I'm going to begin by giving you a little bit of knowledge about who I am and what I've been doing, in addition to what Sophie has already told us. I've dedicated my life to creativity, community, and commerce. During the course of my career, I've worked in a lot of different countries, and this slide shows you some of those countries. As Sophie said, it's 57 industries and 5 continents. This is a slide that we call the logo slide. It's a slide that shows you some of the companies that I've worked with around the world. These are the big companies, but I have to say that my absolute favorite is to work with startups, particularly with women who are just beginning with a new idea. So today we're going to be speaking about entrepreneurship and where entrepreneurship exists in the world. This map shows you with big blobs and little blobs where most entrepreneurs are in the world. As you can see here, this slide is talking about something which will help you come up with a great idea. Why am I showing this slide? I'll tell you. Since 2015, working with the United Nations and discovering all of the big problems that there are in the world, I realized that the most important thing for all of us is to discover our purpose. And to discover our purpose, the easiest way to do that is to figure out what it is that we want to do and link it to one of the Sustainable Development Goals. When you do that, what you're doing in your everyday life links immediately to the whole planet. So I urge you to take a look at these Sustainable Development Goals, whether in the biosphere, society, or the economy, and think about how they may relate to you and your business idea. Now, I'm going to pause here and say, you'll see that I am showing you slides in Italian. Now, I'm doing that because, of course, we're here speaking based out of the embassy in Italy. And I'm speaking to you, obviously, in English. My spoken Italian is not that great. But later, if you'd like to be in touch with me and speak with me in Italian or English or even Spanish, I would love to be in touch with you and help you. So again, my name is Cheryl Edison, and I'm pretty easy to find online, cheryledison.com. I'm here to help you. So the question today is, what's happening in Italy? And really, what wants to happen next? How will you be involved with what wants to happen next? I'd like to tell you that the most important decision you will ever make is the decision about who you intend to be. As humans, we have the opportunity to decide who we intend to be. And that is the key decision when even beginning to think about launching your own business. Who do you need to be? So, there are many different styles to leadership. And this slide is going to give you some examples of all the different ways that people can lead. Now, they're not particularly divided into masculine and feminine, but I'm going to talk about them just a moment. See if we go back here. So you see, there are 4 basic types of leadership. Those who are very stable and very calm, and they do things methodically. Then there are people who are always conforming. They're doing the thing they're supposed to do. That's there in the upper left. The bottom right is very interesting. That's the influencer. Now, it's the same in Italian as it is in English. I'll tell you why it's important. It's important because the most successful leaders are influencers. They're not dominantes, dominants. They're not hierarchical. They're influencers, meaning that gives us an advantage as women, right? Because we tend to influence. We tend to convince. We tend not to demand top down. That's a tendency in our way of being just female, kind of how we usually are. So let's take a look at some of the ways that men and women lead differently and how that's perceived in the world. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these because it's a lot to talk about, but I want you to just see that from the top to the bottom, whether it's taking initiative or it's helping someone by mentoring them, in every case, there are men and there are women who more or less do it about the same. There's not that great a difference in the main characteristics of leadership. Not a lot of difference. We don't start seeing a difference until we get here. Now look at this slide for just a moment and think about why this could be important for you. So being honest and ethical, most people, 64%, think there's no difference between men and women. but 31% think that women are more honest and ethical. Now, I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying that this is the opinion of people, and this means that it changes the way that we're perceived. It changes the way that our behavior is reacted to. If you look here at some of the other opportunities, some of the other ways that women lead and men lead, all the way down the line, there's more or less no difference, but in the areas that women lead, it's always in this area of helping others, mentoring, being collaborative, being ethical. It's on this basis that you can often see in statistics that when even one woman is added to a corporate board, the profits rise. Goldman Sachs announced that they will no longer be bringing any companies public that don't have at least one woman on the board, because that bit of improvement is enough. An incremental bit of what a woman adds to a board changes everything. Now, of course, I have many slides that talk about all the different ways that women and men are different and are the same. We could study this for hours and hours. I'm going to go right through these slides, though, because for us, we're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about each individual that's here and to think carefully ourselves about who we are and who we intend to be. These are statistics, these are numbers, these are tendencies. But I ask you, if you could be anything, if you could do anything in the world, what would you choose to do? I was saddened to learn that in Italy, 99% of the people who lost their jobs were women during the pandemic. 99%. Actually, as I say it, I feel angry. So what I'm telling you, though, is that there's something really interesting about the pandemic that could be an advantage for everyone here in this room. And here's what it is. Women as a whole have a tendency to be resilient. We are people who find solutions. We are mothers of invention. And the men in our lives that support us, that we choose to have in our lives, rely on us for that. And so from that place of resilience and from that place of having choice, we can now look for what wants to happen next for each of us and choose that path and take action. It's action that liberates our dreams. One of the very most important things to do as a woman is to have a network. If you even have two other people that you talk to, man or woman, but particularly women, you have an opportunity to grow. 77% of successful women have a network. They have women around them, they have people around them that they rely on and that they seek advice from. So again, I'm saying it's good that you're here now. I'm happy you're here with us. Feel that you're in community. Come visit us at CherylEdison.com. Join our community too. It's always free. But find your people that understand you, that love you exactly as you are, and create what you want to create. In all the world, we all relate this way. We all relate to these basic ways of being human. We, at the bottom of the rung, there's a sense of fear that we've all been living in now due to the pandemic, because we need our physical certainty. As we rise above having the physical certainty, we can approach satisfaction, where we feel love and belonging. How can we change a feeling of fear, move towards love and belonging? When you're surrounded by people that love you and you feel a sense of belonging, whether they're family or colleagues, and I'm using the word love very lightly. Remember, I'm speaking to you from California. So it's a lighter word for me. For me, love means that thing that brings you joy and the feeling of being who you intend to be. At the top, we have happiness. Happiness is actually the point of starting your business. And in fact, every product in the world is based on these tenets. I'll talk about that a little bit more another time. For now, I've only got about 15 more minutes. So let's keep moving. Oh, just a minute here. Let's get into the slides. So an important thing to think about when launching your business is that being in business has changed a lot. It used to be that what you would sell would be the thing that had the most value in your business. But as you see, as time has gone on, it's not about what it is that you're selling. It's about your brand. And I want to make sure you understand that we each are a brand. That is to say, we are each counted on for something, and that's your brand. When you're counted on for something, that's who you are, that's what you're counted on for, and that's how you are perceived in the world. And the same is true about a company. The way that companies go from local to global is by building a brand. It's not particularly about what the thing is, it's about the brand. And so I urge you to look for a way to create your personal brand. What can you be counted on? So now I know that we can't really do question and answer here in the middle of the presentation, so I'm going to have to kind of mock this up. Let me tell you, this is a t-shirt. It's a polyester t-shirt. Here in San Francisco, this thing probably costs about $10. This is a cotton t-shirt. Here, this is probably like $20. Think for a moment where you are. How much would a cotton t-shirt cost where you are? How much would this one cost? That's brand. And so I'm telling you, you as an individual are a brand already. So when you think about who you are and who you can be, the question comes down to, what's your brand? What do you stand for? What can you be relied on for? And from those notions, step forward into, if you like, launching a business. Now, a bit later, we're going to be speaking with my new friend, Nicole from Lend-Lease. And I want to tell you that being an entrepreneur is just about the same as being an intrapreneur. An intrapreneur is someone who behaves like they are an entrepreneur inside a company. And from the very first moment that I met Nicole, it was like she was the owner of Lend-Lease. And this is incredibly impressive because when a person behaves like they are responsible and they take responsibility for what's happening around them, that's when really wonderful things happen. That's very powerful. And that's when we as individuals, men or women, can change the world as we wish. So I invite you to notice what your brand is and choose what you'd like your brand to be. So again, what wants to happen? What wants to happen? Take a look at this photo for a minute, please. How do you feel? Just take a minute. How do you feel? You have a choice. Do you feel afraid? Do you feel energized? This is your choice. I'm not going to talk about this now, but I'll tell you one thing. Take a look at these men. You're walking up to that table. I don't care if you're a man or a woman listening to me in this moment. Look at the looks on their faces. How do you feel? You have a choice. Choose. And the moment is yours. Again, another option. So I'll tell you what I'd like to talk about now is how you start a business. Very quickly, because we've got like, I don't know how many minutes left, 7 minutes, 5 minutes. Let's go. Every business in the world, everywhere, all businesses work like this. There are 5 steps: idea, product or service, measure the client response, pivot. This is centrale. The idea is you're going down a path and then you're suddenly, wait a minute, there's another opportunity. What can I do? What can I do? And you turn towards the bigger opportunity. And that's a pivot. And every business that survives, whether in the pandemic or not, pivots. So it's not so special. It's very special that we're in the pandemic. But every business always pivots. And so every entrepreneur, every CEO is always ready for the next pivot. And so we must learn how not to lament for too long and to look for what wants to happen next and to pivot. 5th point, persevere or exit. Exit basically means that you sell the company or you go ahead and you move into the next role, which would be the company goes public and you're the CEO of this publicly traded company. Again, with 3 minutes, I can't go through all of this, but the main points are, in the first stage, you're discovering. In the second stage, you're looking for whether your product or service is correct. And the only way that you know that is by looking with fresh eyes and measuring if people want it or they don't. Here in Silicon Valley, we have a phrase which is, will the dogs eat it? Because you can put down any kind of dog food you want, but if the doggies don't eat it, it is not going to work. And so we really say, did you put it in front of people? And I'm not saying, did you ask your mom? I'm saying, did you sell one thing? Because if you ask your mom, she's going to tell you she loves you and you're amazing, because you are. But if you try to sell something and they buy it, you're in business. And that's what we're talking about. Step 4, again, there we are, looking for the efficiencies, looking for the opportunity. And in the 5th step, we're scaling. Let's move along here. We're never going to get through all this. Look at these logos. I'll tell you why I'm showing you these logos. These are all companies that started in a down economy. These are all massive companies that started when it was the recession, when it was terrible, when you couldn't do anything. Oh no, everybody's scared. They started then. And look how big they are now. And during a down economy, okay, we're in a down economy. In a down economy, more people start their businesses than any other time. So now's the time. Now's the time. And if you're going to take a big move towards a bigger global opportunity, now's the time. Okay, so look, this is how a business actually works once you get inside of it. You got to know, what is it? Who are you offering it to? Why are you offering it? Again, some other workshop, some other time we'll go into this, but I at least wanted to put it on the screen so that you could look at it quickly. Every business model works the same way. And you don't have to decide everything in advance. All you have to do is make sure that you have the pieces. Just have the pieces. I was asked to talk a little bit about how a startup ecosystem works. Startup ecosystem begins with mentality. Begins with your way that you have your mindset. If you simply carry your way of thinking forward as an entrepreneur and encourage whoever's behind you to join you, and if you look to the person ahead of you and say, hey, give me a hand, then you're creating a startup ecosystem. Now, there are these pieces, which are very specific pieces, and here's more detail on that and how a startup ecosystem works. This is, what it looks like. I think you may know that I've been launching startup ecosystems for many, many years, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity to do it for many countries, many cities around the world, and actually was able to expand the borders of Silicon Valley at one point about, 10 years ago. And the main thing that I want to tell you about a startup ecosystem is that it begins yet again with you. If you want to be around other people who applaud you, who want you to be all that you can be, there will be a startup ecosystem around you. A startup ecosystem begins with you. You can have it in your kitchen. It doesn't have to be out in a big, beautiful place. Although later when we talk to Nicole, we can talk about some big, beautiful places, because space very much influences the kind of startups that can evolve. Space influences your thinking, and the ways that you see and the ways that you move in those spaces can give you more opportunity. So as quickly as possible, get out of your kitchen when we're not in the middle of a pandemic and you don't have, and get around other people who are thinking things that are similar or adjacent to what you're thinking. Okay. So how do we actually grow our startup mentality? Because that's actually the question, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. If everything begins with you, and everything begins with me, and everything begins with startup mentality, if you wanted to grow your mentality, what could you do? Well, the first thing is to choose your attitude. Choose. Earlier today, somebody asked me, well, are you happy? I choose to be happy, okay? Like, I choose to be happy because that is something I can do. It's something I can do. I want to pause a moment here, and I just want to tell you a very, very short story. Very short, if I can take one extra minute. So on Monday, I got some very bad news that a very dear person to me, who has been my business partner and very important to me in funding startups, unexpectedly died. And I'm telling you this because, and obviously I sound emotional, but I'm telling you this because I'm happy I knew him. And he changed my life. And he stood by me. And if we tried to do business with somebody who didn't stand by me and didn't allow me to be a woman as I am in a business situation, he stood up for me. And I'm grateful to him. And I'm happy. Even when I feel sad that he's not here, I'm happy because he was in my life and he continues to influence who I am and how I show up in the world. So thank you, Stuart Ahrens, for showing up and for being a man who welcomes a woman. So if you're a man and you're listening to this, welcome a woman. Welcome a woman. So choose your attitude. Explore as if for the very first time. Define your space. What's your space? Throw away any idea that you have about what's possible. Just throw it away. Begin to notice your rhythm and honor your rhythm. Use all of your senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and that additional sense that so many of us have, but sometimes don't admit to having, your sense of intuition. Be playful. Have fun. You know, Stuart and I would laugh on our client calls. We would play with our clients, and we had such a good time. And that was one of the greatest things and one of the greatest successes of our work together, was just having fun as we were being successful. Reflect in silence. Take time for nothing. Look at a candle. Look at a flower. Take a walk with no one. Reflect in silence. It's important to take notice, to recognize what you have learned. Recognize what you've learned. And finally, I invite you to choose gratitude. Choose to be grateful. I choose to be grateful that Stuart was my partner for the time that he was my partner. And in each day, I choose something that is that day's, let's say, mantra of gratitude. And by choosing gratitude, I choose resilience. And everything becomes possible, and everything becomes more filled with joy. So I invite you to step into any room that is in front of you. I invite you not to wait to be invited. I invite you to look around you and see men being any way that they are, children being in skirts, in pants. And again, know that we are a network of people that welcome you, welcome the other people around you, and choose creativity, choose community, make your commerce, because you can. Thank you.
Wow. Cheryl, that was fantastic. Just so many really, really good takeaways from that. Thank you so much for that beautiful presentation. And I know we've got a lot of questions from our audience that will be coming in. If you have a question and you haven't yet, feel free to type one into the comment box where you're watching the program. But first, I would like to introduce our intrapreneur, Nicole Gardoni, who Cheryl mentioned during her presentation. Nicole is based in Milan, and she leads marketing and communications with Lendlease, a globally integrated real estate and investment firm. And today she's going to start our Q&A with Cheryl. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Sophie, and thank you, Sherry, for your presentation. It was really incredible, and I like a lot the concept of being entrepreneur than just not entrepreneur, because probably that's where I am. Like, I'm accountable for what I do every day in a corporation, and I try to do my best. I try to change the world and try to be resilient and accountable for what I stand for. So that's probably my first question. We are building an innovation ecosystem in Milan, so I know the power and the importance of connection and of network. And as Lendlease, even as a global company, we are trying to raise diversity. What's your suggestion here? How can we have more women, and not just being more leader, but I think more accountable for what they have to do and to feel their voice and how they can shut up a little bit more?
You know, the thing that I love the most about today is that this is a moment in which I know there are many men with us, and we are in this moment 3 women together. So I thank you so much for this question, Nicole, because the answer is in our presence here today. When we can make a moment in which we as women are in the foreground and the men are with us, and they're with us supporting us as well, this is how we begin to create more presence in every space that we are, and our voices become heard. Each one of us needs to step forward and welcome another woman. And we need to welcome men in a way that encourages them, our friends, our husbands, our brothers, our uncles, our fathers, to be with us and not make the mistake of being separate but equal. We must welcome them with us, and to be an example of how we welcome them with us, so that they can see also how to welcome us with them. And not wait. One last thing on this topic, one last thing. I was speaking to a young woman the other day. Her name was Laura. Laura's probably here. I hope Laura's here. So Laura, who is in Bologna, that Eugene, a member of my team, introduced me to, she was saying, well, maybe in 10 years, women may have some power. And I said, why 10 years? Why not now? And her response was, and this is very important, was because there's too many older people who say it's not now. But let me tell you what, Nicole, we each make reality. And I say it's now. Do you say it's now? Yeah, you're shaking your head. Yes, you say it's now. So who's going to tell us it's not now? I'm not waiting 10 years. I'm not waiting.
And you know what? There is a similarity that I was thinking about. We're building places. We are in the construction sector. And lots of people, and we are thinking to build a city that's built without any carbon and without any fuel fossil. And everybody's saying that it's impossible, but we're saying, no, it's not impossible. We're building that now. So my question here is, I think that even in the construction sector, and sometimes we all go to meetings, and you have work in the property development sector as well, so you know that. Most of the people are men. Even probably in innovation, I think most of the people are men.
Yeah.
What's your suggestion there? Like when you enter a room that's full of men, what, as a woman, what would you do? Like, I think that probably, as you mentioned before, we have to be, and to use the female touch, be more empathetic and still be female. I don't believe in having just masculine leadership. But what's a suggestion here?
Okay. Well, again, I love this question, Nicole, and I really appreciate the opportunity to answer it. So I realized as I have begun providing more and more workshops to women only, that I actually have a system. I didn't realize I had a system before. And actually, I have something to say. A year ago, I didn't realize I was a woman CEO. I thought I was just a CEO. But a year ago, I was told I was a woman CEO. So I was like, oh, I guess I got to do something about that. So here's the thing, 5 factors. The first one is the lipstick factor. I invite you to use this. Before I go into any meeting of any sort, I refresh my lipstick. Now, it has nothing to do with lipstick. I don't care if I'm using lipstick or not. It's that I take a moment, I decide what's going to happen in that encounter, I focus my energies, and I prepare myself by setting intention. I set intention, and I call that the lipstick factor. I take a minute. The second thing is that when I walk into a room and there's a whole bunch of seats, well, I darn well pick my seat. I'm not taking the last seat. I'm not taking some seat in some corner that has no power. I walk in the room, I choose the seat. Because if you know, you walk into a room, some seats have more power than others. Like, let's not forget. Walk in, take a look, choose your seat. And if there's somebody in your seat, well, see if you can get the seat anyway. I mean, ask, can I sit here? So the third thing is, we have an opportunity, and I recommend this to everyone. This is for women, but it's for everyone. Look at the dynamic. Notice the dynamic in the room. Notice the dynamic at the table. Who's related to who? Who's doing what? Where is the power? What's happening? Notice the dynamic. So that's point number 3. I'm not saying do anything with the dynamic. Just look at it. Just see it. Just see it. And number 4, and this is the one, I was working with a group of girls in tech this afternoon. Had a kind of hard time explaining this one, but I'm going to say it anyway. Hold the space. Now, hold the space means that you're holding the energy of the room as you intend it to be. And you're creating the ambiance with your very self. And you're maintaining that in the space. And I can't say a lot more about that, but you can do it, and that really helps. And the 5th one is, don't forget to get the result. So many times you can do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then forget what the hell you came there for, and forget to actually get the result that you're in the room for, what you're at the table for. Especially because at many of those tables, when they're all men, there's alcohol. And I don't know about you, Nicole, but I am not a big drinker. And if they start pouring all that alcohol, I'm like, make me a mocktail. So basically, you have to stay focused on what is the result, because there's all the dynamics, there's all the people, everybody's doing stuff, they're all men. Get the result. Take attention off myself, get the result. That's what's working for me.
That's really good. I think your suggestions are just great, Cheryl. I really believe that even just the lipstick factor, as you mentioned, it's important because you just stand in front of the mirror probably, and you just realize how important you could be, and even that your different point of view will make a different, like you will make you will be really important for the meeting to proceed, and the flow of thought will be different if you just stand, instead of standing silent, you stand and speak.
Yes.
Thank you, Dad. Probably yes. I will just pass over to Sophie because probably we have some questions from the people that are listening to us.
Thank you, Nicole. It was really fun speaking with you. Let's do it again. I want to meet up with you again.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That was really interesting to see you guys interact with each other. And you're right, we do have a lot of questions coming in. We have a number of questions that came from Bocconi University here in Milan. They're Women in Business Association, and they are, thank you guys, you students, for joining us today. The first question from Bocconi, I think is an interesting one. It's, do you feel like your gender was ever a discriminating factor in your career?
Yep, it was. Absolutely was. And my nationality too. And my religion. But I'll tell you what, it was. And I guess the question may be, so what did I do about it? Yeah, probably. Nothing. Nothing. I ignore it. And I'm not saying that it should always be ignored. But what I am saying is that I gravitate towards situations where who I am in the fullness of me is welcomed. And I don't gravitate towards situations where my gender, the color of my skin, my nationality, or my religion are not welcomed. And so I can tell you that I have not spent my life with a flag in my arms standing for being a woman. I simply do what I want to do and I get it done. And I'm not waiting for permission. I'm collaborative. I play by the rules, but I'm not waiting for permission.
Thank you so much for that answer, Cheryl. I've got another question for you from Bocconi. I think you're a very dynamic person, and for younger audience viewers today, I think this is a good one, especially they're all probably looking at their first jobs after university. And this question is, what was your first job and did it have an impact on the career that you have now?
Well, okay. So I have a bit of a long story about that, but I'll be brief. So of course, as a young child, I babysat. Then I worked in restaurants. I loved working in restaurants. And actually, I think I learned quite a lot about how to manage many, many things, including holding the space by working in restaurants. But my first big job came, so I left home at 15 and I started trying to figure out what I was doing. It was not an unhappy leaving, but I was figuring it out. And I ended up at 17 traveling in Europe. And it was there that I had the opportunity to, this is going to sound kind of odd in this context, but I ended up in a situation in which it was offered to me to be a model in this show in Paris. Why? I had hair. I have hair now, right? So I had hair. It was a hair show. They needed the hair. They hired me for this. As a result of this, I was being me. So I was organizing behind, even at 17, I was the same person, right? I was organizing things. And the guy, make a long story short, he cut my hair too short. He didn't mean to, blah, 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 blah. Saw me crying, came over, invited me to Spain. A couple of weeks later, I ended up in Spain. He wanted me to model. This was not going to be right. I asked him if I could work as a secretary. And he said, have you ever been a secretary before? And I said, no, but in high school, I learned to type 35 words a minute. And he said, well, let me talk to you about that. He came back the next day, poured champagne, lifted a glass of champagne, and he said, you are now the secretary of my new international division. And in that moment, he launched his international division. And I then worked for this gentleman for 7.5 years, based in Spain. I didn't speak Spanish at the time, by the way. In Spain, based in Barcelona, launching operations for him in the 13 countries around Europe. And that's how I learned to do what I do today, by doing it. Because the guy was completely unreasonable. His name is Luis Jongueras. Luis Jongueras. He was like Stuart. And Luis Jongueras would ask for the most ridiculous thing. He would be like, I want to have salons in Germany. Go make a relationship for me. And I would fly to Germany where I didn't speak German and just kind of, do whatever I had to do. So in that way, we launched in 13 countries. Last piece of the story. After 7.5 years, I thought I had done everything I could do in Europe. I have no idea why I thought that. I was 24. I was like, I have no idea. Anyway, I flew to New York and I had an opportunity to launch Revlon in Puerto Rico. And that was my very first launch that I did by myself. And that's how I learned to do launches for companies that were not for my boss. I learned I could do it myself. And that was it. And I've been launching ever since.
Wow, that is amazing. I think to hear you doing such big things at such a young age, it just shows that we all have it within us to do big things, even the youngest among us. I want to switch gears. I have a question from Fabio.
Okay.
And he is a university student in Naples. And he is asking, how important is mentoring for nurturing a different way to look at a more equal gender society?
Well, I don't think that mentoring is particularly the key to a more equal gender society. But I will tell you that mentoring or networks, which is the same as mentoring, it's peer-to-peer mentoring. Mentoring and networks is the number one thing that we have to make change. That's what we need. We have to have people around us that we can air our ideas to, and we can test them out, and we can proceed with them with people around us. I can tell that we're going over time. Is that what's happening here? We have to stop?
No, not at all. Go ahead. Are you done with that question or no?
I'll just make one more sentence. And so, Fabio, I really love that you're focusing on mentoring because it is key to success. And actually, when you hear about advisors and consultants, they're all mentors. But it's really important to have mentors just in your life, because when you have mentors in your life and you can mentor someone else, that's when the flow really begins to happen.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. I'm going to go back to Bocconi's questions because we have a lot from this wonderful group. Here's one. In what ways do you think being a woman in your field, or let's say just specifically in entrepreneurism, is an advantage? I think you discussed this a little bit in your presentation, but if you could just hit a couple points.
Okay. So let me say this. Because I've worked in 57 industries, I'm going to say that as Nicole said, the construction and property development industry, oh my Lord, it's like, 19 men for every one woman. And the woman is like sweeping the floor somewhere. I mean, not the case with Nicole, obviously, but it's very like this. So the advantage of being a woman up until now for me has been differentiation. You see, because we are each a brand, and when we are easily differentiated, we stand out. So that means that I have had an opportunity by being the first woman ever in the room, the first woman ever to say this or that, to break paradigms and to actually move in a direction where people had not gone before because it was unexpected. And because it was unexpected, like when I came up with this concept for turning the Dodge Plymouth car plant on 23 acres into the nation's largest makerspace and expand the borders of Silicon Valley, the guys who owned that building were like, "You're going to do what? What's happening?" And so then when the White House came out and they were like, "This is amazing. This is what we want to have happen." So being a woman has been helpful to me as a differentiator. Oopsie.
Thanks,
There we
Cheryl.
go. Yeah.
Sorry
Papers
about that.
flying around. No, they happen to me too all the time.
So I have one more from Bocconi, and this is, what do you consider your greatest success?
Oh my gosh. Being here right now with you. So I basically believe that every moment stands on every moment before. And this moment is the greatest moment. This moment is the doorway to everything else that will happen. I'm very pleased to have met you, Sophie. I've had a really wonderful experience with you. You are so entrepreneurial, and you're in the state, and it's very unlikely to be entrepreneurial in this inside what is a government organization. And with Nicole, we've had these lovely conversations. And so this is the best moment I've had to date. I'm here. This is it. This is it. I'm so happy. I'll tell you, I'm so happy. I want to take a selfie. So here we go. Like, I'm happy. This is it.
Well, thank you. I feel like we all have to consider that a very high compliment from you, Cheryl. Thank you so much. I think we have time for maybe a couple more questions, if that's okay with you.
Keep going.
All right. So we have one from Delia, and she asks, how can we grow our businesses? This is obviously, you probably need a few workshops on that, but if you had a few points.
Okay. So do you remember in the presentation, Delia, when there was this slide that looked like this? It was a triangle, and it was Maslow's hierarchy. So Maslow's hierarchy is a way that you can relate to your product or your service. So the very first thing that you want to do is you want to identify where on Maslow's hierarchy your product or service is. Are you selling into belonging? Are you selling into satisfaction? Are you selling into security? See where you are. The second thing that you want to do is write your elevator pitch if it has not been written yet. The sheer act of getting your elevator pitch pulled into place will grow your business. Why? Because every time you come in contact with anyone, it will make everything very focused. And so let's be really clear. What needs to be in there? What is it? Who is it for? Why does it exist? Where can you buy it? That's it. If you do those and you do them very, very carefully, and you can get that done in a minute, you're on your way to growing your business.
Thank you. And I think this might be a good one to kind of close on. And I think that this would be an interesting one for you. Is there anybody that inspired you or that represented a role model in your career?
So this is another one of those questions that I take a little bit differently. So I'm now going to name 6 people. Okay, I'm just going to name some people. But what I want to tell you is that I hold as role models every individual I come in contact with every day. Because a role model is not this one person and there they are and I'm trying to be like them. No, it's a smorgasbord. We get to choose anything. You can choose any characteristic from anybody you come in contact with. It could be a 3-year-old child, a 90-year-old grandmother. It could be somebody that you're working with and you like many of the characteristics. But for me personally, I'm making my own dinner. I'm making my own dinner. And so I'm picking and choosing different characteristics. And so I'll say it like this. Luis Jongueras, the man that hired me in Barcelona, I hang on to his spirit of being unreasonable, that asking for the unreasonable is the key to success. There's another person that I just adore, Fred Bullock. Fred Bullock was CMO in huge companies like Nokia and HP, and he worked in Apple. And he's somebody who was my boss when we launched Firefly, a mobile phone for kids in 15 countries in Latin America and then on into Europe. And he is one of the most amazing things about Fred, whom I call Sir Fredley, one of the most amazing things about Sir Fredley is that he has the uncanny ability of asking just the right question to cause me to suddenly come up with an answer. And so I would love to be like Fred in that way. Robin Abrams. Robin Abrams launched Apple in Asia. Robin may be one of my dearest friends on the planet. And she has a way of, she's on 3 publicly traded boards. She has a calm, precise, deep wisdom in her that I love to channel. I would love to emulate her in so many ways. I'm going to give you 2 more people because I said I would. I am going to say that, I'm going to say a combination. 5 people on my team. Gabrielle from Uganda. Elisabetta, Serbia. Marisol in Mexico. Laura, now in Bologna. Eugene in Moldova. I attempt to learn from them every single day. Every day I learn something new from them about who I am and who I intend to be. Every day, every day, every day. And of course, because I want to honor my dear friend and colleague, Stuart Ahrens. Stuart showed me that it's not always necessary to take on every client. We don't have to work with people. We can just work with people who appreciate us. And we don't have to do work with someone if they're not actually accepting the work. And this is a very big lesson, because for me in my life, I'm like, I want to give, I want to do it. Come on, let me help you. I'll just, if I feel bad, it's okay. Let's make it happen. And with Stuart, I really learned that no is a defining word. And people know you by your no, oftentimes much more than they know you by your yes.
Thank you for that. I feel like there were a lot of practical takeaways just in you listing your inspirations. I know I said that was the last one, but if you had time for one more, I promise, then I won't take your time any longer. Okay, this is one more from our friends at Bocconi. And it's, what would you say, I think it's a good ending question, what would you say to the future generation of women that want to have an entrepreneurial career?
Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for permission. The time is now. This is your moment. There's no better time to be you. There's no better time to make a decision than this moment. This is the only moment. Make a decision. Be. This is the best time ever to be an entrepreneur. So I welcome you to be an entrepreneur with me, with our tribe of entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. Don't wait for permission. The only person stopping you is you. Step forward.
Wow. Thank you so much, Cheryl. This was a really, really great, inspiring program. Thank you, Nicole, for joining us today. You guys are both really very inspiring, and I had so much fun talking to you guys today. I want to thank our audience. Thank you for joining us. Next week, please feel free to join us again. We will have U.S. author and urban planner Jeff Speck with us to discuss walkable cities, along with Politecnico di Milano's Davide Fassi. The program begins at 4 p.m. and that's on Thursday, March 18th. And then on March 25th, we'd love to have you come back for another Women's History Month program. This one is on women in comics. And we'll have an esteemed panel who will discuss reclaiming the legacy of women cartoonists and how comics can be a catalyst for empowerment and gender equity. Grazie a tutti. Thank you.